WLW. So a sleep study from the CDC, take that for what it's worth, says about 60% of men and 40% of women say they snore at night. That's probably not a surprise. You know, a little bit older and fatter, and those two things go together. Comorbidities, right? So the interesting thing, though, is more than a third of Americans say they sleep in another room from their partner, and we're starting to see more of a trend when it comes to one of the reasons for couples divorcing, and that is because of a lack of sleep, which is torturing, but also because the partner snores. It's called sleep divorce. Join the show, Jennifer Hargrave, who's an attorney and family law attorney, and starting to see this in her practice a lot. Jennifer, good morning. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, how often are you seeing this now? This is, I mean, as far as the main reasons go, and I have a feeling when you get a divorce, it's, oh, by the way, she snores or he snores. It's a bunch of other things on top of that. That's just the proverbial straw that broke the pillow's back.
Sure. I mean, snoring is not grounds for divorce in the classical sense, and people don't necessarily come in saying snoring is what's causing the problem. But I think snoring can lead to people living separate lives. You know, you go into separate bedrooms and then you're just not finding time to connect, and you're not doing all the things that help build a healthy marriage. And then that leads to ultimately deciding to divorce.
Snoring is the root cause. What's still the number one cause for divorce among couples? Is it financial?
I always think that financial is really the symptom of the root cause, which is lack of communication and negotiation and knowing how to compromise. I mean, I think, there aren't always really good role models and good instruction on how to build a healthy marriage. And, we get married for love and attraction and all the things. But that can wane. And then you have to look at, what do you need to really build a healthy marriage?
Yeah. And snoring is is just one of those things. It's hard, right? Because if someone snores next to you and that gasping for air, now your quality of sleep suffers, and you could turn into a serial killer, like literally, if you're sleep deprived. The things that go through your head, like a dog barking or something outside in the middle of the night, and you're thinking, and normally, you're well-adjusted, animal-loving, could be a kid screaming, a cat, and you're thinking of ways to murder that individual or that animal, and you're like, I'm not that person, but it's going through your mind because you're so deprived for sleep.
Right. You've got the pillow there that you just want to whack over their head. Yeah. But definitely, a divorce is a much better option than murdering your partner. So I'm strongly encourage if you're in that situation. But, sleep is so essential to our health. And if we're not getting good sleep, we don't have good coping mechanisms. We're irritable. We're groggy.
Yeah.
We're mad. And I think, if you're in a relationship with a partner who's disturbing your sleep, I think this is really an opportunity to have good communication, healthy communication about what's going on, and talk about ways to, alleviate the problem. Most importantly, take care of yourself in that situation. Like, get up and move. You don't have to kill your spouse. You don't have to hit them. You don't have to act out. Just get up and move to someplace where you can go sleep. But also talk with them maybe about getting a sleep study done, about the devices, the tools that are out there that are easy, that can help you get better sleep. Because ultimately, if you love your partner, you want them to be healthy and to live a long life.
Yeah, but it's more about me.
Well, that will ultimately make your life better. Yeah.
Because it's not helpful thinking at 3 a.m. going, oh man, if I took this pillow and just put it over there, I'm going to go get marshmallows and stick them up her nose, and maybe that'll stop, or just pinch her nose shut. And it's like, these horrible thoughts just go through your head, and it's like, you're not that person, but in the middle of the night, I just want to go to sleep.
Absolutely.
Here's a recommendation for you. I will tell you what, foam earplugs. So back in the old days, I used to work at night at this radio station, 9 to midnight, and my kids were little then. And in our house, the kitchen is right below our bedroom. And so every cupboard door sounds like cannon fire, even if you're just closing it. And so rather than put the soft closers on, they didn't have them back then. I started wearing the foam earplugs that you use for construction and stuff, which is other stuff that I do. So I'm like, I got to get my foamies out. I put those in. And now I don't hear anything. And that's bad, too, because someone could break in the house. There could be explosions and gunfire, gang war, stuff like that. I'd have no idea. I got my foam earplugs in, but they really can be a marriage saver.
Yeah. And, there are mouth guard devices. There are the nose strips. There's the CPAP machines. I mean, there are tools and resources out there. But if you're in that situation, the important thing is just to have the communication conversation. I think too often couples they'll split up and they'll be in separate rooms that will lead to separate lives without ever really talking about it being intentional. Yeah. I know lots of healthy marriages where they are staying in separate rooms out of love for each other. But, they're building out time for intimacy. They're building out time to be intentional about building connection in the relationship. Mm-hmm. So I think it's your mindset is how you approach that situation. Do you want to solve the problem or avoid it? And if you're avoiding it, I think that's where you're going to lead to some challenges.
So it's called a sleep divorce, couples sleeping in different rooms, and it's causing strain on marriages. Something like more than a third of Americans say they consistently sleep in another room because snoring is a big issue for couples. And 43% of millennials engage in sleep divorce, 33 Gen Xers, it's my generation, Gen Zers, 22% baby boomers, or 22% of baby boomers, and millennials are the biggest ones doing this. Now, that surprises me because typically the snoring gets worse when you're older. Because the changes in your physiology, and you're younger, you tend not to snore as much. But I think it's interesting millennials engage in this more than baby boomers.
Sure. I mean, I think I think maybe millennials are a little bit better about their own self-interest and taking care of themselves. And that's where I said, like, you don't have to be angry and blaming and resentful to your partner if you're not going to sleep at night. Take care of yourself, get up and move in the other room. Create a nice space for yourself to sleep. And, love your partner in the morning. I mean, it doesn't have to be, sleeping in separate rooms doesn't have to be a bad thing. It can be a good way to avoid an actual divorce if you're intentional about it. Yeah. But if you just allow it to, avoid the actual problem, you're probably avoiding a lot of other problems in your marriage as well.
Jennifer Hargrave is a family law attorney. We're talking about sleep divorce this morning on 700 WLW Scott Sloan Show, and couples sleeping in different rooms, and that leads to the downfall of marriage in some cases. But I would say that there's probably other factors that get people to come to you, couples to come to you. Snoring is a big deal, but probably like selective hearing, and that is a common complaint if you've been married long enough, is that I talk, but she doesn't listen, or I say stuff and he doesn't pay attention to me.
Right. I mean, usually, we kind of hear that that the man is losing hearing and loses the ability to hear the higher pitched sounds like his wife. And so, again, it comes back to communication. And, if you're having trouble hearing, then there are devices out there that can help you hear better. But the important thing is that you're communicating. And I keep coming back to that because I think it's a skill that a lot of people lack in relationships. Mm-hmm.
Well, I will say it was years ago even too. The same thing in our relationship. We were married, my wife and I, 34 years. And it was that situation. I'm like, I just told you. She'd ask me questions about stuff I just talked about. Where they're going, what are you? I'm wondering. I don't know. Is this like Alzheimer's? Is it what's going on with you? So she goes and gets a workup and gets her hearing checked, and they're like, "Yeah, your hearing's great." You're just not hearing it. I'm like, damn it, we spent all that money to tell me you're just not paying attention to me. Okay, wonderful.
Exactly.
Right. But, so I don't know how you change that, but.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the complacency in a relationship can be a real challenge too. Mm-hmm. And, it's easy to take each other for granted. It's easy to stop, being attentive and listening to your partner. And that's why I say, living as if divorce is always a possibility is actually a good way to make sure you're staying plugged into your marriage.
Yeah. All right. Do you think maybe as an attorney you'd recommend a test divorce? You just guys separate for a little bit just to see if it's not something else in the snoring or the selective hearing?
That's a great question. I mean, I think the studies show actually when you separate, then that will totally increase your odds of getting a divorce. So I would be careful with that.
Just shut up and be miserable. Previous generations, they hated each other and they stayed together for the kids.
And if I were smart, I would be saying, yes, you should totally try a trial separation, see how that works, because that'll increase more business.
Right. It's good for business.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're at that place where you're considering ending your relationship, that in the early days, it's a really good time to get in and do something maybe called discernment counseling or look at some, marriage therapy, different types of coaching programs that can really help you strengthen your relationship. And I'm going to tell you, we think it's about changing the other person, but if you're committed, you can actually change your relationship for the better by just you making changes. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's a critical key.
Oh, I see. So it's always I got to be the one that changes. She's the one that's snoring. She's the one with selective hearing. She's the one who's financially irresponsible. She's the one. And so it's okay. We'll just accept it, a-hole. That's what you're saying.
I'm not saying that your wife talked me into doing this show this morning.
Here's my problem, though, is like, I'm kind of a control freak, right? Not domineering, like where you bet, going old school, like, but it's more like I just like things. I'm kind of OCD, right? I like things to have a place, and she's not like that at all, and organized, and it's hard to accept that if you're kind of like that personality. You know what I'm saying?
Isn't it a crazy thing that we tend to marry our opposites? We do. Yeah. We tend, it's the night owl marries the morning person. Some like it hot, some like it cold in the bedroom. Like all of those things. Yeah, we marry the opposite, and it is not the other person's job to make us feel more comfortable. Did you know that? Like, we don't know that. We think, well, if you love me, you should be, tiptoeing around me and making sure my world's okay. But in reality, when we're having the anxiety over things not being in the right place, it's really our issue. So I'm not a therapist. I just get to be a spectator in lives where marriages are falling apart. And so oftentimes, when people realize that really the change is within you and you're the one who gets to make the change and how you approach it, you can make your life a whole lot better.
The one that surprises me, Jennifer, is, the things couples fight about, ultimately see a family law attorney and getting a divorce, is chores.
Chores, yeah.
That seems easy to solve, doesn't it? It's like, okay, well, yeah, money may be tight, not everybody can afford it, but I don't know, once a month, treat yourself to professionals coming and cleaning your house, and then just kind of, go around and clean up every week or so, do the little stuff, and then have someone do it. It seems like something you could farm out.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, farming out is a great way to handle it if you have the means and the resources to do that. Right. And I think it's not as expensive as a lot of people think. But the important thing, we come back to this, is communication about the chores. Because what doesn't work is the default of, when you take care of all the domestic stuff, I'll take care of the yard, or you take care of the kids. Like, this is where we have to talk. And there are so many things that go with, assignment of chores. So if you're dealing with kids and extracurricular activities, you not only have to get the kids to the events, you have to get the coach or gifts, you have to do all the things, the pictures, and all the things that go with it. And there are better ways for us to be communicating about that as partners, so we're sharing more equitably, because that doesn't end with divorce, by the way. Post-divorce, those assignment of responsibilities, especially when you have children, still continues. So, being able to identify what the things are that need to get done and who's responsible for doing it, and allocating it in a way will make for a great co-parenting relationship, whether you're married or not.
Right. Well, let me give you some advice. I'm kind of a unicorn. Like I said, we've been married a hell of a long time. No plans on getting divorced. We love each other. We don't always like each other. I think that's another element there. It's a honeymoon. It doesn't last forever. But I have plenty of friends, and I'm in the minority here if someone's been married this long, is I try to keep it together if you can, because everyone who's gone through it has been miserable, because it's such a hard process, and there's, shared custody if there's kids, and then there's also the alimony payments, all that stuff, right? It's so messy.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I always tell people, like, divorce isn't going to solve all your problems. You're going to create a new set of problems. Yeah. But I will also say this: when you need a divorce, it's a beautiful thing. I mean, there's no reason to suffer just for the sake of a really toxic relationship. And so that's what I love to do, is help people get through the divorce process so that their next chapter is better. And they're not living in pain, but that's not always possible. I mean, there is. It's not easy. I'm not an advocate for divorce. I'm just an advocate in the divorce process. So if you can save your marriage, by all means, do it.
You should be
and make it a better marriage.
You're a family attorney. You should be pro-divorce. What's wrong with you? You should be encouraging everyone listening to get a divorce, Jennifer.
I know, it's a crazy business model when I'm trying to talk people out of it. But
right.
Yeah, no, we care about families, and and sometimes divorce is the necessary.
Yeah, is the necessary thing too. Because it's interesting, back in my parents' day, in our parents' day, for example, it used to be, you stay together for the kids, and you can hate each other, but and then when they get older, I think you wind up having a toxic family environment then too. If you're really not getting along, you're not doing right. But the kids realize that.
You're exactly right. And I mean, this is what we say all the time, is divorce in and of itself isn't the thing that's horrible for children. It's the conflict in the relationship. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to be divorced to have conflict in your relationship. So if you're experiencing a lot of conflict in your relationship, you're feeling a lot of the resentment, the anger towards your spouse. I mean, those are all red flags to get help. I mean, get help, reach out. Either, get help with the therapist, get help with the coach, or go visit a divorce attorney and learn what your life can look like, after divorce. And these are all things that help empower you to make better decisions in your relationship. Right. Because what I really do believe is that people shouldn't suffer in marriage.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's got to be a little suffering. It's the yin yang.
As long as there's a little fun with it too, that it's not all roses for sure.
It's yin yang is what it is. You can't have darkness without sunlight without darkness, quiet without love. Jennifer Hargrave, family law attorney, and sleep divorce, a trend in America here. People, that's the trigger now. It's like, all right, everything else I could barely tolerate. The snoring is putting it over the top here. Thanks for joining the show. All the best. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you.